Hello everybody, this is Dr. Willow Ariella coming to you to talk about socialization and family, which definitely do go hand in hand. Our family members are our biggest socialization enhancers, or whatever you want to call that. Socialization, one of the things that sociologists and sociology does is kind of look at things that are assumed or things that are sort of underneath the surface of life. And we all just go around with this thing that happens to us knowingly and most of the time unknowingly, called socialization. Everything that we come in contact with is sort of conspiring in a way to socialize us. And so just about every place you go, every role you have, well, every one of them, there are going to be people and institutions and other effects. Of course, when you start recording, your brain goes somewhere else. Other effects that are going to try to mold you and shape you. And that's what happens throughout our lives. That's what socialization is about, is helping us be, reasonably normal human beings, normal in quotation marks, and how we should behave in different situations. So the text author goes through how sociologists used to assume that socialization stopped kind of when we became adolescents, but we will continue to be socialized until we die. We will continue to interact with people and be in situations where we may be encouraged to mold a little bit. I used to work in a nursing home, and I'm thinking about how it's interesting that people used to think that socialization stopped. When I worked in a nursing home, that was a big socialization process for people who were moved to the nursing home. Usually, well, I can't say that. I would say, part of the time people adjusted fine, and then part of the time it was a big adjustment process for them, and they had to become acclimated. They were socialized in the ways of the nursing home. So, as a social worker, I assisted them and their families in learning how to be in the nursing home and things like that. So it's just interesting, reflecting on that comment that people used to thought socialization stopped after you got out of childhood. So the author talks about personality and identity, and this part of the socialization process, can come from different places, and our personality can be shaped by others and our interactions with others. There's almost always a section in every sociology and psychology introductory textbook on nature and nurture. It used to be nature versus nurture. However, and your author does that a little bit, but it really should be nature and nurture. And she does say that they're important contributors, and they both really are. Our genes are extremely important, as well as our environment, and so it's really a combination of both, nature and nurture. And so sociologists, social workers, psychologists, and others look at what goes into helping make a healthy, happy home, and helping children become socialized, their environment, as well as trying to prevent genetic problems. And the Harry Harlow studies are very important studies. Interesting, I was reading or listening to a book recently called Drive that I highly recommend. And the author talks about a Harry Harlow study that, not this one came later, but the Harlow study that the author mentioned had to do with motivation, intrinsic and extrinsic. Harlow kind of dropped this aspect of study, but if you have any inclination whatsoever to read this book or listen to it, I really encourage it. It's called Drive by Daniel Pink, and I found it really interesting, his mention of an earlier Harlow study that never went anywhere that had to do with extrinsic motivation. But anyway, the Harlow study was definitive proof of the attachment process and how vital and important it is. You've all probably heard the horror stories of orphanages where children were not handled, and we learn from those that children do need handling. I'm going to go turn on the light. Be right back. The lights aren't working right now. Okay. Sorry about that. So, agents of socialization. So the first one she mentions is family. I think it's pretty obvious that family is an extremely vital source of socialization. They really are the primary people who shape who we are, and we are driven as little creatures to try to do and act and behave as our family members wish us to. And then later on, our peer groups, of course, and peer groups do not stop with adolescence. We have peer groups at work, as you well know, who help shape our behaviors and our roles in work. Media. So there's a lot of discussion about media, and if you get a chance to watch the Kilborn video called "Killing Us Softly," I highly, highly recommend it. The author of your text mentions her in regards to media, and the Kilborn media videos are really, really powerful. Definitely, institutions are trying to get us to behave in certain ways. If you think about schools, very, very important. Schools have a hidden and a manifest curriculum, and when you go into sociology of education, you learn more about that. But hidden or latent curriculum and manifest curriculum are important shapers. Religious institutions, sports. Can you imagine? I mean, those of you who played sports, or those of you who like to watch them, there's so much impact going on in socialization in sports. And then work, of course. I mean, I think about how much I'm influenced by my colleagues and by the bureaucracy that is influencing me, and the different organizations that I've worked for. Every time I work for another organization, I am socialized into their behaviors and roles, and the quote unquote culture of the workplace is very important. Then she goes into demographic and social factors on socialization. So, of course, people have looked a lot at family, at poverty, at different socioeconomic status, and how important those are. She talks about child rearing and socialization. So what are the different research studies that have looked at these aspects, and how much of an impact do they have towards socialization? So she mentions cultural influences. So definitely parents around the world treat their children differently based on the socialization, based on the norms of those countries and those and the ethnic groups that they belong to. She mentions that, sorry, I'm trying to get a little bit more light here. She mentions the higher quality of life and longevity for children born in the U.S. compared to other countries, and how that can impact socialization. So a lot of the social forces that can impact ours and other socialization process. And then she talks about theories of socialization, and we looked at some of the main theories, conflict theory, and so the conflict theorists. And keep in mind that this book is an introductory text. It's a simplification of things because you can only put so much in an introductory text, and it's usually pretty broad. And so the author's talking about how conflict theorists would say that people are socialized to not rock the boat, to not create problems for those in power, and not speak up or speak out or anything like that, and that we just need to toe the line. So in a very simplistic nutshell, that's what conflict theorists might say about the socialization process of children. And again, if you went on in sociology, you would take classes that are more specifically for about each of these topics. So this is just a quick look. I'm going to have to turn on the light, so I'm going to stop this video and then continue on the next one. So bear with me, please. Wish I could pause it, but I can't. One downside of creating videos.